It's Saturday, March 28th, and if you haven't heard already, the Houthis have joined the war, but they're not the only one. Now, they have launched a couple drones and missiles towards Israel, which have all been intercepted, and they warn that they will continue to launch these drones and missiles until the U.S. and Israel stop their war with the IRGC. And the Houthis represent another example as why this all has to come to an end. They are a proxy of the IRGC, and they sit at another economic chokehold at the Gulf of Aden, heading into the Red Sea, where they can influence and interdict ships going through there as well. So you have these two very important, crucial economic corridors that affect the global economic security, all being terrorized by one organization. And this is something that's been allowed to grow and fester over the decades, and so this was going to happen regardless. And so the next component that's entered the fray is the militias over in Iraq, the Shia militias. They are now convoys of Toyota trucks heading into Iran that are going to go help out the besieged forces because they have been getting systematically annihilated by primarily Israel, but also the U.S., especially in Tehran. And so they're going to go and fill those gaps left behind by the dead Basij members and fight right alongside the children that are being recruited as well. And in case you're wondering, yes, it's the classic white Toyota Technicals that we used to target all the time. And yes, it was a missed opportunity because they created their own highway of death, and I didn't hear anything about them being taken out. But back to the children. The IRGC absolutely wastes no time on their propaganda, as the spokesperson for the IRGC stated that as many as 1,000 children amongst 600 schools that have been destroyed now are unfortunately killed. And of course, if you do the math, that's like 1.5 kids per school. But don't let good propaganda to get in the way of actual factual statistics. Also, speaking of statistics, upwards of 30 to 70,000 civilians were killed prior to this by the IRGC on their own civilians, where they killed women and children, and the likelihood of them using their bodies as propaganda is almost definitely going to be a reality. And Tehran has gone so far as to threaten to launch retaliatory attacks on U.S. and Israeli universities in the Middle East. Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, yes, we have universities, international schools in the Middle East, all over the world, in fact, and that's what they're going to target. And while hundreds of anti-war protesters were in Tel Aviv, Israel, there were many tens of thousands across the U.S. and other cities around the world, specifically in the U.S., with the No Kings protest. And it's amazing how many show up to this, not realizing how the irony and the hypocrisy in their protest, because No Kings is supposed to symbolize protests against authoritarianism, while they go and support authoritarian leaders like Maduro and the IRGC. You could ask them to make it make sense, but they absolutely won't be able to. Of course, they might say that they're mad about USAID being shut down and defunded, but then you should probably remind them that there's current communications that are under investigation that back in 2024, USAID conspired with elements of Ukraine's government to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars into the Biden administration's campaign. Now, of course, you have to use terms like alleged, and this is under investigation, and these are unverified claims, but you wouldn't find them using that type of language when we talk about, say, a certain laptop that had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, despite not citing any hallmarks of Russian disinformation. But I digress. Might be more prudent, especially if you're in this crowd in St. Paul, Minnesota, is to remind them of the tens of billions of dollars that have been funneled through their state through fraud schemes, through Medicare and education type mediums and avenues. So, or you could shift it over to California and talk about all of their medical fraud over there as well. But again, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Now, of course, they will try and cite certain stock rigging schemes conducted by the Trump administration and people making billions of dollars overseas, but at least it's not with taxpayer money. Back to the war, Saudi Arabia is seriously considering joining the war with their U.S. allies as the 31st MEU enters the area to conduct intelligence preparation of the battlefield for follow-on operations. On top of this, Qatar and Ukraine signed a defense treaty, including the exchange of expertise on countering missiles and drones. And if you thought this was a biased take, well, I am pro-American, so take that for what it's worth. And let me know in the comments, are you pro-American or are you anti-American? I would be very curious to know, especially amongst my followers. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Also, share, like, post, you know the drill, and have a good day.